You die. You're buried. Your family says goodbye. The earth settles over your grave. A year passes. And suddenly, at night, people arrive at the cemetery with torches. They dig up your grave. Not to rob you. Not out of revenge. You are being summoned to court. Sounds like a chilling legend, but in the Middle Ages, this was real practice. Balance scale fact number 1. Posthumous trials really existed. In medieval Europe, a person could be put on trial even after death. If there were suspicions of heresy, treason, or serious religious violations, the church or secular authorities would start an official process, whether the accused was alive or not. Why? Because in those times, faith determined everything. People believed if someone sinned against the church, it threatened not only their soul, but the whole society. Heresy was seen as a contagion that could spread even after death through their books, ideas, and followers. So they held trials, even for the dead. Scroll, how did it work? The process looked much like a normal trial. Clergy representatives would gather. Charges were read aloud. Witnesses were called. Sometimes defenders spoke for the accused. If the deceased was found guilty, their remains could be exhumed from the grave, publicly burned, denied Christian burial, and their property confiscated by the state or church. This was a severe punishment not only for the person in the eyes of faith, but also for their family. Relatives lost inheritance. The family name was shamed. Children could lose status and protection. Fire famous case. One of the most well-known examples is the English theologian John Wycliffe. He criticized the church and advocated translating the Bible into English so common people could read it. He was not executed during his life and died a natural death in 1384. But decades later, the church officially declared his teachings heretical. What happened then? His remains were exhumed, burned, and the ashes scattered. Even years after death, his ideas were considered so dangerous that they wanted to destroy them along with his body. Performing arts, why did people accept this? Today it seems barbaric to us. But it's important to understand, medieval thinking was different. People genuinely believed in an afterlife, eternal and real. If someone died in heresy, their soul was doomed. If they were not judged, it could bring God's wrath upon all society. It wasn't just a legal act. It was a religious ritual of purification. The trial of the dead was seen as a protection of order and faith. Waxing crescent moon atmospheric scene for video. A foggy cemetery. Torches illuminate stone crosses. A priest loudly reads the charges. In front of him, emptiness. The person is gone. But the verdict will still be delivered. Part ending. The Middle Ages were an era where fear of sin was stronger than fear of death, where the law operated even beyond life, where ideas could be more dangerous than the sword. And that's just the first fact. In part 2, you'll discover why people slept in 2 sleeps and what they did in the middle of the night. Imagine waking up at 3 in the morning. Darkness. Silence. No notifications. And you don't panic, because it's supposed to happen. In the Middle Ages, people didn't sleep straight through the night. They slept twice. Crescent moon fact number 2. First and second sleep were normal. Historians have found dozens of references in diaries, medical records, and literature to the so-called first sleep and second sleep. People went to bed shortly after sunset, around 8 to 9 p.m. This was the first sleep. It lasted about 3 to 4 hours. Then the person would naturally wake up, not by accident, not because of noise. It was a natural awakening. Fire what happened during the night. After the first sleep, people might stay awake for 1 to 2 hours. And this time was considered special. Some prayed, some read, some talked with their family by the fire, some visited neighbors. Historical records even note that couples most often spent time together during this period. It was believed the body was most relaxed after the first sleep. Then people went back to bed, beginning the second sleep, which lasted until dawn. Can or why did this happen? The answer is simple: no electricity. After sunset, life slowed down. Candles were expensive, so people conserved light. The body adapted to the natural rhythm of darkness. Studies show that if people are left without artificial light for extended periods, their sleep naturally splits into two phases. So this wasn't a weird quirk. It was a natural biological rhythm, one that we've mostly lost today. House atmospheric scene for video. A small wooden house. Glowing embers on the hearth. A man quietly rises from bed. His wife sits by the fire, wrapped in a wool shawl. They speak in whispers. Outside, complete darkness. No city noise. No lanterns. Just the night. An hour later, they go back to sleep. And it's perfectly normal. Open book historical mentions of the first sleep, appear even in Renaissance literature. For example, phrases like this can be found in the works of Geoffrey Chaucer, and readers of that time understood it immediately. No one had to explain what the first sleep was, because everyone knew. Exploding head, why do we sleep differently today? With street lighting, lamps, and later electricity, people started going to bed later. Work days became longer. Cities became active at night. Gradually, the biphasic sleep pattern disappeared. Today, if you wake up in the middle of the night, you might think it's insomnia. In the Middle Ages, it was just a normal part of life. Brain thought to ponder. Perhaps some of our modern fatigue comes from ignoring our natural body rhythms. Medieval people had harder lives, but their sleep was closer to nature, part ending. The Middle Ages weren't just wars and disease. It was a different rhythm of life, a different kind of night, a different sense of time. And that's just the second fact. In part 3, you'll discover what knights really wore under their armor and why it was far less comfortable than it seems. Shall we continue? Crossed swords. When you imagine a knight, you see shining armor, steel plates, a sword, a heraldic shield. But here's the question. What was underneath the armor? And no, it wasn't just put on and go. Crossed swords fact number 3. Armor was a complex system, not just metal. A full suit of plate armor weighed around 20 to 25 kilograms, 44 to 55 pounds. But the weight was carefully distributed across the body. A knight wasn't a slow tin can, like movies suggest. A trained warrior could run, mount a horse, and even roll on the ground. But under the metal were several layers of protection. Thread first layer, linen shirt. A long linen shirt was worn over the bare body. It absorbed sweat and protected the skin from chafing against the metal, because metal on skin is a bad combination. Shield second layer, gambeson. The most important layer was the padded jacket, called a gambeson. Thick, stuffed with fabric or wool. It softened blows and prevented armor from cutting into the body. Sometimes a gambeson was worn on its own. It already offered significant protection. Imagine wearing a thick, padded jacket in summer, then adding 25 kilograms of steel on top. Yes, it was hot inside. Chains, chainmail. Many knights also wore a chainmail shirt. Thousands of hand-linked metal rings. It protected against cutting attacks. Making one chainmail could take months. Grimacing face, and what about comfort? Here's the reality. Using the restroom in armor was difficult. In heat, overheating was a real risk. Without a squire, putting on full armor was nearly impossible. Knights rarely acted alone. A team of squires helped put on and remove the armor. Horse racing, the falling knight myth. There's a popular myth. If a knight fell, he couldn't get back up. Not true. Modern reenactors and accurate armor copies can get up, run, and even roll on the ground. The weight was smartly distributed. mostly on the hips, not the shoulders. Cloud with rain atmospheric scene. Early morning. A battlefield camp. A young knight stands in his linen shirt. A squire helps him put on the gambeson. Then chainmail. Then the plate elements. Each strap tightened. Each plate snapped into place. The helmet goes on last. Breathing sounds become muffled. The world narrows to the tiny slit of the visor. Brain interesting fact. A full set of armor cost as much as several years' income for a commoner. It wasn't just protection. It was a symbol of status and wealth. Not every warrior was a knight. A knight was elite. Performing arts reality over romance. Armor looked impressive, but inside, heat, sweat, and fatigue. The Middle Ages weren't glossy. They were heavy, practical, and harsh. Final conclusion of the series. We tend to see the Middle Ages as a time of legends, but behind the legends were trials of the dead, nights split into two sleeps, and nights locked in layers of fabric and steel. History isn't like the movies. It's stranger and far more fascinating. If you want, we can also make a bonus episode with the most shocking or extreme medieval facts cross swords.